I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan of Westerns. There are a few that I really enjoyed, and then of course there are space Westerns, which I love. But overall, Westerns, But I'd heard so much about The Searchers over the years. How it's visually epic, how it's arguably John Wayne's best performance, and how it's the greatest Western film ever made, that I felt I should give it a watch. All of those reviews, touting its amazingness and importance in film history, they were 100% accurate. It was so much more than just cowboys, lawlessness, pioneers, right versus wrong. It was a celebration, perhaps the celebration, of one of the most prolific characteristics of the Western genre, the untamed land and its hostility on every frontier. When it comes to storytelling, The Searchers has it all. Drama, adventure, romance, comedy, well-developed characters, beautiful music composition, incredible cinematography, and of course, some of the most iconic and breathtakingly epic backdrops in cinematic history. The Searchers was so impressive that it was one of the first films to have a behind-the-scenes making-of video. The incredible effort and planning to create this Western masterpiece required roads to be built in order to bring in production equipment and the crew, and required electricity to be brought into the area to accommodate them. During filming, there were around 300 people on the set, including local Navajo, who were extras throughout the film. But what is it about this film that makes it so unique, so respected and acclaimed, so damn good?
I'd be obliged if you'd come to the point, ma'am.
For us, it was the perfect intertwining of character and setting. Let's start with a little bit about Ethan Edwards. You've probably already noticed these things, maybe you haven't, but they're at the core of what we're going to be talking about.
Put an amen to it. I'm not finished yet. There's no more time for Brad. Amen. Brad, Martin.
Ethan is a very complex character with a very complicated past. On the surface, he's brave, but also arguably reckless, opposite sides of the same coin. He's caring and selfless, a bit racist.
Well, I could mistake you for a half-breed.
Vengeful.
Why don't you finish the job?
Beneath everything, he's lost. A misplaced man in a world that's moving on without him. A man whose only known is the unknown, the unforeseen, the unsettled. A man who fits in everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So how did Ethan become such a man? Well, to start, his mother was killed by Comanches. If you look closely when Debbie runs to hide in the graveyard, you'll see her headstone. We already know that he believes in inequality because, as a Texan, he fought for the Confederacy in the Civil War. And trust me when I say that we aren't forgiving or excusing this behavior. We're merely trying to give it some context within the film. Ethan is in love with his sister-in-law. There are several hints which director John Ford has scattered throughout the film to clue in the audience. There's a clear connection between Ethan and Martha, and tension between Ethan and his brother Aaron. He looks at her longingly, as if he's waited to see her again. Ethan avoided coming home for years after the war ended.
Why didn't you come home before now? Dad, go on with Mom.
Is it because his long-lost love was there, married to his brother? In fact, writer Frank S. Nugent identified the medal that Ethan gives to Debbie in the script as a gold medal or medallion, something appropriate to Maximilian of Mexico, indicating that Ethan went so far as to fight in another war in Mexico to keep his distance. When it's time for him to go, Martha very tenderly holds Ethan's coat, eyeing it affectionately, leading to an overly tender goodbye. And then there's the most obvious hint of all, that Ethan spends 7 years searching for Martha's only child, possibly even their child together. So why are we spending so much time talking about Ethan and not the amazing art direction by James Bissevi and Frank Hoteling? Because all of the characters, but especially Ethan's, existences both mirror and juxtapose with the environment of the film. While the film is set in Texas, it was filmed mostly in Monument Valley, which is located within the Navajo Nation on the Arizona-Utah state border and has become synonymous with the imagery of the American West. As we mentioned, the environments throughout the film are echoes of Ethan. They're harsh, stoic, at times unforgiving. impartial, but unintentionally permitting to those who are respectful of them. They're pure and pristine, the perfect juxtaposition for the morally bemired characters and their plights within the film, as well as for the imperfect relationship between the two main protagonists. The colossal scale of the elements within the landscape, as well as the vastness of the landscape itself, places a magnifying glass on one of life's simple truths: that human beings are small and inconsequential. In a place like this, life comes and goes. It is forgotten. The world moves on and builds upon the ashes.
But I don't think it'll be forever. Someday, this country's gonna be a fine, good place to be. Maybe it needs our bones in the ground before that time can come.
The elements within the landscape offer a vertical connection between the heavens and the earth, an intermingling of life and death, now and forever, what lies right ahead and what lies farther down the road. And their horizontal lines against the horizon accentuate the depth and the vastness of the western frontier. Ford, Basevi, Hoteling, and all of the production team were creative with how these environmental elements were used throughout the film. The acclaimed opening shot is a perfect example. We begin in darkness with an abrupt introduction to the bright, sweeping landscape, contrasting intimacy and safety with breadth and vulnerability. From what we can tell, the house sits about here, with a view toward this direction, and Ethan approaching from this direction. This darkness to light, closed to open dolly shot opens our eyes, which were essentially blind, to a massive land. A land so extraordinary, we almost don't believe that it exists. Against this landscape, the settlers' structures are low and distinctive, while the Native Americans are tall, narrow, and mimic the backdrops. The final location of the Comanches' encampment is a prime example. It is located somewhere around this area, with a backdrop of the totem pole and Yebiche sandstone formations. Ford and cinematographer Winston C. Hoke utilized wide, sweeping shots and panning throughout the film to show the massive expanse of the frontier. Color and light to show love, danger, hope, and despair and loss.
What do you want me to do? Draw you a picture? Spell it out?
And of course use varying countrysides and weather to convey the passage of time and the seemingly endless search. The searchers transported us on a journey of loss, love, vengeance, hopelessness, faith, and perseverance. In a setting that's both pristine and yet sometimes inhospitable, we followed Martin as he burgeoned into adulthood, independence, and self-awareness. And Ethan as he journeyed not just to save someone he loved, but perhaps to save himself, to give himself purpose. Without purpose, we're lost, left asking ourselves, where do I go next? What do I do? Why? The why is always the considerable question. And for that answer, we are forever wandering our own frontiers, our beginning meeting our ending as we come and go. We are forever searchers. What about you? Still searching for something to watch? YouTube has picked out this other video just for you, and we have a whole playlist of other video essays, so go check them out. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button before you get back on your horse and ride off into the sunset.